welcome to Euphoria. You're listening to episode 13. This is available on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. This is the podcast about all things EULCS, featuring your hosts, me, Daniel Dracos, and Martin Deficio Lunga. Welcome, Deficio.
Thank you, Dracos. It was a great flight. I love EasyJet.
Oh, yay, EasyJet. Well, maybe let's get the sponsor. We have two other people here, so let's run through it. This week's topics are looking back at the ULCS finals, the pressure of playing for Fnatic, the level of Europe, and MSI 2018, as well as some Twitter questions potentially sprinkled in there in the mix. Joining us to break it all down is none other than five-time back-to-back LCS champion Youngbuck, and the only person I know of who is both a EULCS rookie and a champion, which is Bwipo.
Hi.
Wait, what about like perks?
No, because you actually have not played enough games in the regular, because a Rookie of the Split is a regular season award. We haven't figured out actually, you're now such a special case that you can probably win Rookie under the current rules, which we may have to change. You could technically win Rookie of the Split next season, having already won the EULCS. Because you have to play 3 or more games in the regular season to qualify as rookie, and you only played 2, and then you won the EULCS.
That's interesting. That's a special one.
Yeah, that's actually cool.
So we'll update you. I don't know if you'll be eligible or not, but under the current rules, you would be. You're now so special that you're causing someone some kind of headache.
That's probably not going to happen, though. Like, I think that's kind of...
I'm sure they're going to change something there.
I'm sure.
I also got to say, like, your title... not as cool as Youngbuck's title in terms of the introduction, right? It was a very long. You could have kept going.
It's pretty crisp for I mean, Youngbuck has a lot of accolades here. I could have listed off each individual title. Winner of the 2016, 2017, 2018. Just gone through them all.
MSI finalist. Funny enough, leading up to the tournament we're about to play now.
Yeah,
as well.
So I guess the first question is, Bwipo, do you have any extra titles that we need to know about?
Best gangplank player in Fnatic.
I mean, you're forgetting a really important one. The self-sustaining carry top laner.
That's right. No, I don't really have anything. I think just memes. Like we always troll it because like obviously Joey plays top lane as well. I used to competitively. And we have this self-sustaining carry top laner thing we have going on, and he copy and paste it. And every champ select he plays, he copy paste like this super troll. Like it's like a copy paste that what it comes down to is like I'm a self-sustaining carry top laner that has no champion pool issues, and I am not a win condition. I am the win condition, and stuff like this. It's so funny. I don't know, it's so good.
Just let me know if you want to write for broadcast there, Joey. That sounds like great stuff.
How to empower your top laner right there.
That's inspirational. So one thing, we were talking a lot before the show because Martin was stuck in traffic getting here, but I found out...
Throwing me under the bus.
Yeah, I mean, you were. I mean, it's not your fault that traffic exists, but you were. You were late. I found out Fnatic has a pregame ritual that I had no idea about, that you guys talked at length about. Run me through this pregame ritual. What do you guys do?
Well, we play a board game called Werewolves. It's very similar to Town of Salem, Throne of Lies, Mafia. You get dealt a role. There's about 12 different roles, I think, and the good guys have to find the wolves, and the wolves have to try to hide and lie their way through and try to convince the town that they're good people. Yeah. And this is our team bonding activity that I think we started in week 4. And we play it every day since then. Still play it every day between scrims.
Every day?
Between scrims, before scrims. Sometimes at night, we're just like, let's just play. Yeah. And whenever we have had a bad scrim, we just say, guys, we didn't play wolves. So then we just take some time to play a game of wolves and go into the next scrim. And then usually end up winning. It works. It works.
Okay, so there's so much I want to know about this. Like, why do you think... So does it work when you guys are tilted to just play this game and it works every time that it's just like gone after this game?
I mean, not necessarily gone. It's just like, there's a certain extent of myth, maybe. Like it's not really, it doesn't work every time, but it works like enough to the point where people feel good about it. And when they play, they feel like, okay, we played wolves, and maybe they feel bitter about it because, we played wolves now. Let's go into the next game. We'll be okay. Maybe something like this. But I do think it helps just. You get a laugh, right? Because generally how we play is we end up lying and just being really like troll about it. Like
sure.
we say it's not we're playing like really try-harding to win every round or whatever. We're trying to get the most fun out of it we can, and I think that helps to reset the mentality after a loss. And I think that's what like the biggest deal is, at least for us.
Who wins the most?
Caps.
I was about to say
Caps.
You're not if he's lying or not.
Yeah, he's
trolling.
He's really good at it. He's really good at it.
And I guess, Joey, did you introduce this?
I did, yeah. I was recommended the game by a friend, and then I always played card games with Martin when he was in Copenhagen Wolves. We would always sit at the airport and play card games for hours and hours waiting for our flight. So I knew he liked these kinds of games. So like, okay, well, I'm just gonna order this and see if people want to play. And it was just a really big success.
Was it originally supposed to be like this big team building exercise? Was just like, hey, we have free time, we can try doing something like this, and it just grew.
Yeah, I just thought we would play it a couple of times, maybe for a week or two, but I never thought it would actually stick for the team.
No, we actually started with a different board game. Started with Codenames, right?
Oh yeah, Codenames.
Yeah, we started with a
Codenames,
different one. It was really fun. Everyone liked it. You know, it was a different board game where you had pictures and you had a spy master that had to basically describe the pictures with one word, and then people had to choose the right picture, but there's different colors. So there's two different teams, and obviously the pictures would overlap. So like, you know, if you said mountain, there could be two different mountains. If you chose the wrong one, you would lose or whatever. So that's where it started. People liked it a lot, and then we just started looking for other board games, and we said, let's play Werewolves. Yeah. It worked out.
Yeah, because Codenames didn't stick, and then we're like, we need to find something new.
We need to find something new. But it worked.
It's so interesting. I mean, it's actually brilliant in a way because one, it's so simple, but at the same time, it's so effective for a team because we know a lot of teams obviously are trying to find ways to, team bond and do stuff when you've just lost the game where you're gonna try and refocus.
Teams investing in like mental coaches. A lot of teams like go and they like some guy gives them a speech every between games and you guys just lie to each other nonstop. You're like, okay, I feel better now. Let's go next.
I can just imagine like in a best of 5, the finals of MSI, Fnatic lose game 1 and we just see Youngbuck with the game under his arm, run on stage like, get away from me, let's go guys, and then just start playing it instantly.
I just love the idea of you guys ever being in game 5 in the future, and there's gonna be a lot of people who won't hear this who will assume that like Youngbuck or Dylan are back there and you're giving the most inspirational speech of all time, like some great like glorious like Oscar-worthy speech, and you're gonna be sitting back there like, no, this guy's a wolf, man. I'm telling you.
All right, good. We got a key to success now for Fnatic. I don't think any of the other teams are gonna bring this strategy to MSI, but we just revealed it on the podcast, I guess. So maybe now it's
that was our one goal, was not to leak any Fnatic strats, so we've already
failed
ruined
already. I actually have a completely different question, and we talked briefly about it with already, but your accent is very interesting. And I'm obviously a man of a very special accent. It's been part of my brand as well. It's very clear I'm from Denmark. No one is really going to question that. You, on the other hand, you're from Belgium.
Right.
However, you sound a little bit British.
Yeah.
Kind of 3 to 4 other things almost. And it kind of depends on what word you're choosing.
Right.
What's going on?
Well, when I got into like online gaming, so a bit like World of Warcraft at the time, and I actually wanted to like play arenas and stuff in World of Warcraft. It required a certain level of communication to coordinate, and it turned out to be that the players I was playing with were from England, and they were from different places. Some were from Scotland, some were from just generally in the UK, and then I spent like 2 years with these people, like day in, day out, playing with them. Shout out to them, they're really cool guys. I still talk to them from time to time. It's not as much, because everyone's moved on and I'm still playing games. So, but since then, I've just always picked up English from that age, right? I was like 11 years old at the time. This is like 8 years back, and ever since, because I learned English doing that. So I wasn't very good at it back then. I had a really like thick Dutch accent back then. But now, like, ever since, because I always just picked up their speech. Certain words will be pronounced differently for me. I don't know which ones. I don't pay attention to it. I have no idea, like, when my accent changes or stays the same. But that's just how it works for me. And like, I think it's good enough English that everyone can understand me, at least, like, it works for me. And ever since, it's been, like, a good point for me, as in like I feel confident when I speak English to the point where I actually feel like, because me and Joey speak Dutch from time to time to each other, right? Like for me, English is a more comfortable language.
To be fair, speaking Dutch is also kind of difficult, right? Like
it is for someone who isn't Dutch,
and
obviously he's from Belgium, so he has a really weird accent to Dutch people.
I actually have to do an effort to.
It's easier for me to understand him when he speaks English.
It's not even like that's the thing. Like, he says this, but like if you compare to how I like talk to my parents compared to how I talk to him, like I'm actually making like the biggest effort of all time to make sure he understands me. Because if I would like speak in my own dialect, then I don't think he wouldn't even follow. Because Shox actually has the same dialect as me. He's from the same region.
Out of curiosity, just as a sample, can we like pick like a sentence and you can both say it in your own dialect, and me and Officio can see if we can actually hear the difference here?
I can understand some Dutch. There are Danish words in there. Or maybe we have Dutch words.
It's actually kind of difficult for me because I haven't like done it in so long, right? I haven't like.
I mean, no pressure. We're not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just curious. Can you talk about this being like so different? It's always just interesting.
Give us a sentence, Drakus.
Hi, how are you doing? Let's just do that. Super simple. Maybe in Dutch. I don't know. I assume it's simple because it's simple in English.
Hey, hoe gaat het?
Hey, hoe gaat het?
That's a little bit of more over there from Joe. Yeah.
Oh, right. It's like
We have a really soft
the
G.
G's.
Yeah.
The G's are definitely the biggest difference for sure.
We make a lot of fun of Belgian people for having the soft G.
Yeah. I'm from Bruges, right? And there's 2 G's in there, so we say bruh. Yeah.
Bruh.
Whereas if he says it, it's completely different.
Yeah. I would say Brugge.
Yeah, bruh.
See, on the podcast we're learning.
As an ignorant American, this is so fascinating to me. I'm like, oh man, there's other languages in the world.
Have you ever heard like a really thick Dutch accent when they speak English? Because I feel like all the players we have or have had in the past, like Shook and you, Joey, like I don't hear the Dutch part when you speak English.
Well, I don't know them because like.
Because the only time when I remember a Dutch accent is from the Austin Power movie.
That guy, I don't think that guy was Dutch, by the way. I think that's probably a pretty over-the-top character.
It's supposed to be a Dutch accent, and it was like very clear. But I've never actually heard anyone speak like that.
Do you want him to say, I'm Dutch? Isn't that weird? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just saying, like, I never felt like you had a really thick Dutch accent. So.
Well, thank you.
And could you try and fake one when you speak English?
No, I can't.
Yeah.
You sure?
No, I'm really sure.
Oh, damn it. All right.
Jeez.
All right, we'll stop beating the dead horse and we'll move on to the first topic.
All right.
So our next topic, one that we probably delayed for too long, is the EULCS final. Purely our fault that it took us this long to get a Fnatic members on after the EULCS final, but just kind of want to go back and take a look at it. And my first question is the preparation that went into final and your approach to both the game and the preparation leading up to it. I'm just curious, like, what actually went into this 3-0 win in terms of how you beat G2, how you come out on top in this final?
I think we realized very early. I mean, we already saw in the spring split they weren't good at closing out games. So we looked at them and said, okay, well, their strength is top lane. So we want to shut that down in the draft, like we banned Fiora game playing these kind of champions.
Mm-hmm.
And then we are very comfortable playing late game, falling 5k behind because we know that at some point they will take a 50-50 Baron because they're not good enough to take towers without killing us or us making the mistake for them. So that was basically the preparation going into it. Draft-wise, that was a strategy that we wanted to take.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty clear. Worked pretty well.
Yeah.
Game 1 was like Camille ban, Fiora, GP, pick Reckless Tristana, which had, 95 or 100% win rate in the EULCS. So I guess it's actually kind of weird because I don't think any of us were really surprised that Fnatic not only won the final, but also was fairly like one-sided. At least I had a 3-1 as my prediction. I was just like, okay, Fnatic's going to win this.
I said 3-2 because I feel like I said 3-2.
Because of your feelings? Or because you were like...
Or did I say 3-0?
I don't know, I just felt
I don't remember what I said. But anyway, I would have liked 5 games. And I knew that you guys were the favorites for sure going in. But I definitely did not expect it to be this one-sided. Not even if it was a 3-0, I expected it to be much more like close, contention, single, like big final team fights deciding it. And while that was kind of the case, it didn't feel like you guys were playing on even footing. It felt like G2 was being forced into this situation and you guys had like planned it the entire time, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, from my perspective in the game, I felt like after game 1, I felt like the other games are just a repeat of that in the sense that, we fell kind of behind in the early game. I fed a kill or 2 in the early game. All right.
We
it's
saw.
fine. Yeah, I did. I know full well. I know better than anybody else. But the idea was just, I just got put on the Sion because I wanted to be on the Sion because it just shuts out certain possibilities for top lane, right? Like the Yamada Khan last week talked about is like the meta revolves around him.
Mm-hmm.
He is the meta pick. He's the staple. And it just kills so many good champions for G2. And what we we thought were good champions for G2 were sideliners, such as Camille and Fiora, and these are playable into Sion, right? Which is why we banned them. You know, because the other sideliners can't lane against Sion. So we just use him as a way of, in the finals at least, making sure that, because even leading up to the hype, everyone was like, yeah, top lane has to win, because mid lane is an even match, and if it's not, it's going to be really hard. And bot lane, we all assume that Fnatic is going to pull ahead there, right?
Yep.
So if we just pick a neutralizing top laner that's going to do really well on his own, and we shut that out, we're just going to scale, and we're going to have a really good time at least taking an even game, or even a little farther behind. And game one, how it went, it was like we were behind, then we started fighting, it went good, and then we started winning, and then we took full control. And I feel like it was just a repeat of that in every game, and that's why people feel like it wasn't close, but it really was. Like, I think the games they could have won, if any of the fights went their way, the games would have looked a lot closer, and maybe even they would have taken a game off us. It was just, at some point, it probably felt hopeless for them, right? Because like every time it was the same repeat. It was get to 20 minutes, you have a small skirmish or a fight, you lose like
Regis
3 for 1.
Yeah.
You lose 3 for 1 or like 5 for 0, you all get killed, and then Fnatic gets banned, and it's like, oh, you know, the guess game's over again, guys. And I think it was more of the fact that it was the same game 3 different times in a row is how I feel. I play the same game. You know, I went into the lane. My lane wasn't exactly what played well. You know, we get to the mid game. Like Caps is doing Caps things. You know, Reckless is doing Reckless things, and they're just carrying the game. And yeah, we just get to a point where they feel comfortable doing that, and we couldn't lose. That's how we felt.
So, Joey, do you think G2 made a mistake in terms of how they approached the pick and ban phase, trying to go for, you know, the setup where they gave away Sion every time, and they could win early game, but would always end up losing late game team fights? Should they have changed anything in the draft?
Well, I think they were very one-dimensional in how they approached the game with the side lane win condition with Wunder. And I don't know if the other players are strong enough to carry games. So, but I do think they could have put more responsibility on Perks, for example, because, I mean, he has shown that he can actually carry games, right? And he played a game of Karma, I think. I mean, we did the same.
Yeah,
right?
we
I remember Cap saying he was shit talking Perks on the show, and then the first game he looks in Karma.
He looks in Karma. He's like, imagine trash talking someone and locking in Karma mid first game. You know, it's like, God damn it.
Oh God. I mean, so do you feel like just with the players they had, like that was their best strategy, but they were just stuck in a position where they had to draft a specific way, and it was just easy for you guys to exploit it?
I think so. It just the meta was in our favor for sure for this finals. The meta, 80 carry meta, blah blah blah. Like, not necessarily. I think top lane has always been in a good state, and the champion pool reflects that, right? Like,
Wait, you already told me top lane sucks.
Yeah, but like the thing is, like people say that, but like if you can play 3 different styles of champions in the lane, there's no way this lane is bad. You know, you can play Camille, you can play Fiora as carries as 2 examples. You can play Vladimir, you can play Swain, you can play Mages top, and you can play tanks top, right? You have everything. At least like the most thing. Like, bruisers were always kind of iffy in that patch, I admit. But Camille's kind of a bruiser, Gangplank's kind of a bruiser, and these champions are staple top laners in the meta, right?
But I can't play Aatrox.
Yeah,
Bwipo.
that's
Top
what I'm
lane's
saying. Like, it's just
terrible.
like-
And that's where you're wrong.
It's like,
Aatrox is
because
pretty
people don't get the
decent.
option, they think the lane sucks, but the lane's actually been good, you know? Like, there was so much focus on the entire split on the carry top laners and Gangplank and Camille. It's just like, yeah, sure, they're the only ones that can work, but they're there. Like, they're the most oppressive too.
I mean, we had Ryze top lane in other regions.
Yeah, sure. you had
Cassiopeia showed up in Korea a lot.
Swain, Vladimir, like these have all been just staples through the entire meta. And sure, Ornn and Shen and Sion, they kind of drown out the pool sometimes because you have to pick them into each other, right? They're good matchups, and you have to match them with how the game works. Because tanks are just good. You need tanks in League of Legends to form a good team comp. At least like in any game, really, you need a tank, right? It's just useful to have one.
That's the problem, I guess.
Yeah, that's what people don't like, because the tanks are generally not as fun to play.
And you get flamed if you don't draft a tank and then can't execute the split push comp. Everyone is, you know, oh, this team sucks, what's going on? And then like just draft the tank with engage, and then it's much easier to play the game. And then we get tanks. Joey, random side question. Are we close to seeing Renekton being viable in pro play?
Well, you'd have to ask Bwipo, but I don't think so. I don't.
You're the old Renekton man.
Yeah, he's the Renekton guy. I don't think he's a bad champion necessarily. Just again, I don't feel like he has a place in the meta. I don't think his matchups are good enough. And I don't think the whole, you know, go level 3, dive top lane is a thing with the current junglers, though it's possible. It's just if Elise shows up, I'm sure Renekton, her buddy Renekton will
It showed up in play-ins.
Yeah, that's my point.
All
Like,
I'm saying.
I'm sure the champion has room. I think Conqueror, like even press the attack Renekton was good enough. Like
it's a lot of damage.
Yeah, he hurts. Like he's still Renekton, but it's just like I said, if you're playing against this tank, if you don't get like monster ahead and can get something out of it, he'll still just be a tank, and he's gonna do tank things. And what tank things do is they tank your team and kill them too. I think. Ornn, for example, that champion does a little too much damage sometimes.
That's a small problem. That is a small problem, I guess.
Like, and I don't think that tanks shouldn't deal damage. Don't get me wrong. It's just the way they're balanced. They always have utility at all points of the game. Whereas, imagine a situation where the Renekton falls behind. It's over. Like, you actually almost can't win. If the tank wins side lane, which is actually sometimes realistic, the enemy team literally they can't play the game because their side laner can't push. And they can't group and fight either because the other top laner will straight outperform them.
Question for you, Youngbuck, regarding Fnatic in this split. You guys play a lot of late game. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, very fair.
Yeah, you guys obviously use that as your main win condition during the split. Was that just because it gave easier wins in Europe, or because you felt like that was actually the best way overall to play the game?
I don't think it's the best way to play overall, but it was indeed because we just analyzed the European teams and said they were not good enough to finish end games. So I have a philosophy that there are 3 ways you can draft. You can draft with a philosophy that the enemy team is not good enough to close out games, then you just play late game. The second one is you draft with a philosophy that you're better than the opponent, and then you just draft a very balanced composition and go even into the game. And then you have the drafts where you say, I am a good team, or we are a good team. Okay. And then you draft like Misfits does.
Right, yeah,
With the
on the clock,
Yeah, on the clock.
Important power spikes to hit. I like that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's a good way to look at it.
I like the 3 different draft styles. I feel like there's a lot of teams that overuse the we're a good team, and a lot of teams that overuse the let's go late game. But I don't think it's always because they believe that they're the better team.
I think what's important if you go for the I go for late game draft is that you actually have carries that will outperform late game. Because if you're drafting late game against a team that just has better players in the late game, it doesn't matter that he's like playing a champion that maybe does 100 damage per second less. Like if he's playing Varus, it doesn't matter that you have Sivir if your player isn't as good. Because the thing in League of Legends that people have is that you have outscaling, but it's always to a certain extent. And that's why I think in certain regions Varus is very popular. I think in Korea, for example, it's been popular throughout the split.
Yep.
Because it's not like Varus will get outscaled to the point where he can't kill anybody.
Nope.
He will still be killing champions. It's just compared to the crit ADs at 6 items, of course, he won't be as useful. Of course, he won't bring the same amount of DPS. But that's what I'm saying, is if you have the better player on the Varus, he's likely going to deal more damage than the other guy anyway, even if he gets outscaled. And
now he just builds crit himself as well.
like now it's fixed.
Now he just joins the crit and carries.
Weird spot on that champion right now. So the other thing I want to talk about, speaking of good players, you come in, you win, you give an interview, you're now the best top laner in Europe, according in your eyes. And now look, like I'm not going to agree or disagree with that statement, but I will say that there were a lot of people who were upset by that statement. I remember one Splice analyst coming in and being like, "This is unfair, this is ridiculous," and clearly stirred up some controversy there. Why don't you run me through?
Well, first of all, 8 months before I won the finals, I was playing in the LCL, the Russian league, and I played relegations. So, I lost. Well, I won the relegations, but I went down there. And then my dream from that point was always to play in the LCS. Fast forward 8 months, I just won the finals. I'm gonna be a little cheeky, that feels really good, especially with all the people that were like there cheering for me. That does something to you. And
for getting an ego.
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course. How can you not, right? Like everyone bigs up the other top laner, and then it turns out that, I don't think he played particularly good that series. I think that if you look at it from a very rough standpoint in terms of just impact, I think he had almost none. I never had the feeling like, like Wunder's roaming, I need to be very careful or he's going to kill my teammates. No, every time he moved, nothing happened. Really, nothing happened.
He was on a tank twice as well, which was not exactly
it was just, he's playing Ornn and he doesn't find the fights. And that's fine. It's a team thing. Don't get me wrong. It's not like, like the best Ornn player in the world will always find a good fight. There's no way. It's not how the game works. But, I had the feeling I played a better set there. To say I'm the best top laner in EU is obviously, it's exaggeration. There's still Alfari, there's still Vizichachi, there's still Odo Omne, there's all really good players I didn't get to play against. Yeah, but he's on my team, right? Like when I said that, I think the amount of controversy came from the fact that I like had him as an afterthought, right? Because again, he's on my team. I don't see someone on my team as straight competition. I don't feel like I have to beat Soaz. No, I just have to be different. Because we're on the same team. And if I want to be an asset to Fnatic, I need to be able to do things that Soaz can't. And that doesn't mean I need to be better than him. It just means that I need to bring some form of merit that isn't Soaz. Because I already explained this, is I don't want to be Soaz version 2. Because if I'm Soaz version 2, why wouldn't they just play Soaz?
That's
An injury. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
An injury. That's the only reason.
But
So I just want to be my own player, and that comes into the thing of the mentality thing, the mentor thing. Soaz has been a mentor to me. Sure, in a way, like he's helped, but mostly we're just discussing gameplay. You know, like what do we think? Is this champion good? Is that good? Like discussing what to go on, what champion, what build, and mentor. I think Joey and Dylan really they have done the most for me in terms of mentality going into the game. Like the first thing Joey told me when I was going on stage at the first game is, you know, you don't have to do anything special. If you just play the game and farm, I'm sure you'll be fine. Like, you know, you don't have to like do anything special. You don't have to like be the next Khan. It doesn't matter. As long as you play a good, consistent game of League of Legends, you will win. And that's what matters.
And I remember that game. Cyan top lane logged in.
Yep.
Caps went top lane on Talia like 5 times. They got a bunch of kills on... Who was it? Who was the top lane? A poor guy on Shin.
White Knight.
Was it White Knight on Shin just getting
He didn't die too
beaten
much.
down the ground over that top lane?
I think he died twice. I mean, my experience from that, and I think that it also relates to the play-ins from MSI, is that I felt like when I was playing on Fnatic in the regular split, I felt that our players were just generally stronger. So they needed some of the lanes to step up and straight up outperform our lanes in the laning phase. So they just need to get a huge advantage and basically just start roaming and carrying the game from the beginning of the game, or we would just win. Like later on in the fights, I didn't feel like our players were beatable. You know, I didn't feel like in any stage or any team in the ULCS could straight up take us on in a 5v5 and outperform Caps and Reckless, for example. You know, outperform Hylissang in terms of playmaking. That's just how I felt, and that feeling is really powerful, right? Because you don't feel any pressure, and a lot of people tried to put pressure on me, but there really wasn't any. And to a certain extent, that was kind of sad, because I felt like even if I lost the finals, I would be like, I tried, but whatever, you know? I didn't feel part of the road necessarily, because I didn't play those 18 games of the regular split like everybody else did. I played 2 of them, you know? And at the end of the day, I think even if we lost them, we still would have been first place, you know?
Yep.
So to me, there was very little pressure, and it was somewhat sad in the sense that even if we lost, I wouldn't have even like felt too bad for myself rather than my teammates, you know, because they would be devastated because this was their chance. Don't get me wrong, we grabbed the chance. We showed up, and I'd like MSI to be the same in the sense that we can show up and live up to expectations. I'm not sure where the expectations lie and how good we are, because we just haven't played against any of the other international teams, right? Like, I don't think we've played against China or Korea yet, because they weren't here yet. But
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is I don't have too much pressure on me, because I'm just playing the game. Yeah, I always just told myself going into the finals is I got picked up as a substitute because I was good at playing the game. And
That was from solo queue, I guess.
Right, yeah.
So
And-
Joey, were you part of picking him up?
No,
or-
he actually joined before I did.
yeah.
You can't even take credit for it.
Yeah.
The great talent scout.
I'm actually not even sure who like picked me up, but the idea for me was that I can just play the game, just play solo queue, and one of the biggest things that helped me mentally with the team, in the sense that I deserve to be here, I deserve to play the finals, is that teams have the opportunity to go for an emergency substitute, but I didn't even have the feeling that anybody even thought about it. You know, like nobody even thought about, you know, maybe getting Kikis or whatever free agent top laner instead of me and playing in the finals. No, it was just like, oh, we have this guy. He's been playing with us, and he's always just performed over the course of the split in the games that he got. So we're okay, you know. Nobody like I didn't have the feeling that anybody was at night like stayed up and like, oh god damn it, we have to play with Bwipo instead of Soaz. You know, we're gonna lose now because of that. I had the feeling that it was like, yeah, let's go win.
This is where Joey drops the bomb.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
oh,
exactly.
actually,
You know, like, yeah, so
Yeah, that would be really awkward.
Busy,
You know,
the Polish league, you know, very tight schedule. But yeah, you know,
Or like, you know, maybe even expect, you know, like, yeah, it's just, there was no mention of even thinking about getting anybody else. Everyone was like,
Can you confirm this, Joey?
I remember the day you were at a dentist office. You may have thought,
yeah.
Turns out we can't get Khan. So
How is this entire thing from your point of view now, with obviously working? Because you had the chance with expecting Kickers on G2
Right.
for a couple of weeks, I guess it was, before Kickers
which did
ended
not
up-
go very well.
Which
yeah.
did not go very well.
Yeah.
Now you had a new chance with a top lane sub situation. How was that from your perspective?
Yeah, so first of all, Soas was really open to it. Like he wanted to substitute himself as well. So that's the first thing, right? Because Kikis didn't want a
Right,
substitute.
yeah.
It was forced on him. And at the start, I didn't really take Bwipo that seriously as an in-house sub. Substitutes have never been taken very seriously in Europe and NA. But he actually proved himself slowly, and we just wanted to actually build him up and give him some stage time. And at the time of playoffs, it was very clear we're going to start Soas. But if things go south, we can actually put in Bwipo. And then Soas broke his hand, and 5 minutes later I'm telling Bwipo, hey, you're playing the finals and semifinals.
damn, that's intense. And I mean, it led to like a huge moment, and a big moment, especially for you, Youngbuck. I mean, winning the 5th title, we kind of joked about it earlier, but like, how do you feel now when you win an LCS title? Like, are you just racking them up now? Is it like, what did it feel like when you won the first one versus now when you win the 5th one? How did you feel about that? How did you feel about that?
So I think the first and the 5th one felt the most special because, I mean, I've always played relegations in Copenhagen Wolves, right? So winning the first one was very special. I mean, the Fisher knows, exactly.
Hey, we're the relegation kings here, man.
And after that, with G2, it became the expectation to win. So if you win, like someone would like tap you on the shoulder, like, good job, boy. And now next split. It wasn't something special. But now with Fnatic, it was a new challenge, new team, and it was basically between me and Perks between setting that record.
Yep.
So it felt very special again. Probably even better than the first time I won.
I like that. I like that a lot because obviously, when the split started, Fnatic had not won or been in a final for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then when you joined the team, I assume from the get-go, the goal was, like from the management as well, win EU LCS. Or was it just like, top 4 is fine? Or was it literally like, Youngbuck, you're here now, we need to win?
My goal was to be the best team in the West.
In the
So
West.
that also means you have to win the ULCS, right?
Probably a good start.
yeah. So that was my personal goal, and I know management wants to get top 4 at Worlds. So it's also very ambitious, but
Okay.
I think we're working on it.
Yeah. I mean,
taking steps. We'll see how
Yeah.
MSI goes. Now we have been there's a lot of people came in with Twitter questions, and I want to say some of them we already had planned to ask. And if you've heard your question already, I hope we're hitting a lot of them. But one specifically from a guy called Bloodhands, nice, at Bloodhands Finn asked, did you join, to you Joey, to you Youngbuck specifically, did you join a winning team or did you make this team a winning team?
I think I joined a winning team and made them winninger. Like, right?
Nice.
Right? I mean,
We'll quote that.
yeah. There's a lot of individual talent in the team. It's very clear. And I just think I provided some tools to help them actually win the title. But maybe they could have done it without me as well. Like, God knows.
see, I mean, based on last year, where there were a lot of great talent on Fnatic, and you were obviously on the other side with
Yeah.
G2, you looked at Fnatic and you saw Reckless and Caps and these guys, and you were probably saying these are really good players.
Yeah.
But they didn't really function when it came to the really important games and staying, focused, not tilt. Reckless talked about this on the podcast already. So what was it that changed when you joined in terms of this mindset where the players would no longer just collapse if something went wrong?
I wish I had the answer. Like, I know I have a system in macro, right? So when you're actually in the game, you know what to do. Like, bot tower falls, okay. We know what's going to happen in the next 3 minutes. And then if the next tower falls, then we know what's going to happen after that and after that. So that is pretty simple. You can do that if you're tilted or not. And other than that, we have werewolves and just a really good team atmosphere, right? Like, I think the atmosphere is just really good. And even though everyone is very different and you have to approach everyone very differently, it's just everyone is good friends and there's not as much tilt.
So you're not like grabbing each player individually between games and like giving them a little pep talk and stuff, and they focus again.
No.
Werewolves. Werewolves is the pep talk.
Discord.
Yeah. I think what's really important is our team atmosphere and how we approach our practice, in the sense that we play like every other team 6 scrims or like 6 games of scrims, but afterwards our entire team's playing solo queue. All 6 of us are in our practice room playing at least like 4 hours of solo queue straight after our scrims, and that's every day. So like in our off days, nobody's like missing from the office. Everyone's sitting there playing solo queue for at least a few hours, and I think that builds up a good feeling because
It's a culture, right?
right, of course. And I think tilt can come from a lot of things. Like for example, if you have the feeling that one of your teammates isn't practicing enough in solo queue, and then he makes a mechanical misplay on stage, that's gonna burn. You know, it's gonna be like like if this guy just practiced more, maybe he would have hit that, and that can just create like the spiral of bad thoughts and just make you feel worse and worse and worse about it. Like, like maybe I shouldn't be putting this much effort if my teammates can't keep up to it and blah, blah, blah. And then this doesn't exist in our team. It just doesn't, because everybody is putting in more than the necessary hours. And I think that culture is what makes our team win. Because Dylan even said it in the middle of the split, like we look at the ladder and it was like, we have like 5 players in top 25 of the solo queue ladder. And that doesn't necessarily mean much. But the fact that you have a team that all has these players high in the solo queue ranking whilst playing 6 games of scrims a day just means that you're just gonna win, like you have the best players. So it's really hard not to, as long as you just keep that balance, you keep that atmosphere up, and you keep just the grind on. And I think that's the advantage we have over other LCS teams. I'm not sure how it is for other LCS teams because I don't have much experience, but from what I can tell, I don't see other teams being as busy on the ladder, I guess. Like, not everybody's playing as much solo queue. And sure, there's like maybe X team has like 3 players that play every day, like 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours a day of solo queue, but not all 5.
Yeah,
and in our case, all 6.
And that's big. I think, we've heard different approaches to that because like one thing that comes up is that issue where people feel like they're putting in variable work, and we've heard different players and different coaches that have come onto the show talk about different solutions, whether it's kind of separating work and home and making sure that like people are more open about confrontation. And it seems like you guys have just avoided any of those issues altogether just because literally everyone is on the same page and is just grinding solo queue and is putting in hours.
So I'm wondering, this is just to be a little bit negative here and kind of see what you guys think. Are you guys riding high on the fact that from the get-go, when this split started, you guys were winning games and you have not been in a huge slump yet, which tends to hit certain teams? Because if, like, typically when players are really motivated to grind a lot and keep on a positive spirit when you keep winning a lot, this is obviously probably hard to answer, but like, have you guys had moments where you felt like, okay, now we've actually been losing 6 scrims in a row, and still after that, people were feeling great and ready to work?
It happened this week, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we went 1-6, right? And then afterwards, everyone was
it was
just
1
laughing.
and 6. Yeah, it was 1 and 6. So like, you have to imagine it's not even 6 games. Like, we had to stop one of the games because it was so bad, and then we played another one. So we played 7 games, we went 1 and 6. But yeah, it's just, I think it really depends. I think it depends on why we lose, and I think our team, we never lose because of like individual skill, because I think that's a really big deal. Because if you feel like you're losing because you're not playing the map well, or you're not like you're losing because of the draft, or your macro game isn't very good, you can always fix that. At least people have the feeling that you can fix that. But if you're losing because one of your players just keeps getting smashed, then
True.
That's much harder to fix, and that creates a lot more tilt, I think.
Do you think that like this is a test that you guys haven't really had yet though? Because this one day where you've lost 6 scrims, you can go in and smash the next day. Do you feel like because we've seen a lot of teams. I think Vitality is the most immediate example of the season where they started on such a high and then they slumped so hard. Do you feel like you've had that test where you've really like hit the lowest the team morale can hit?
I don't think we've had the biggest test yet, which is MSI, based on experience. But we've had a small test when we were 2-2 in the first 2 weeks, and the critics were already saying that maybe it won't be a G2 Fnatic final. And
We gotta start some narratives here, man.
Giants and Vitality for 2018.
Yeah.
Okay, we got the
Yeah,
hype train, but
I understand. There are many fans who are like vultures for Fnatic news, and they're ready. The second they think you guys are going down, they're like just ready to leap on that.
Yeah, but MSI, at least based on last year, you're gonna lose games that you think you're not going to lose. And how you handle that is going to be very crucial for the next games, because you played 10 best of ones in 5 days. So if you get tilted on the first day because you lose to RNG with a good draft, and then you lose to the play-ins team after that because you're tilted, then the things spiral really fast.
Yeah. Right. And I hope that like that's not I hope that that's not an issue for you guys. Like, right, as an EU pundit, that's something we can see you guys overcome. But I think that is like one of the few questions that remains to be answered for this Fnatic lineup, because we've seen, I think, so much from this team over the course of the split. But similar to your question earlier about like how they were drafting, trying to figure out if that was how Fnatic have to play or how Fnatic want to play, I think this is the other thing that's like the last question that separates you from being, you know, a really good team to like a really great team.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, the way you guys were drafting and playing in the EU LCS leaves me with a lot of questions for MSI specifically. And obviously, we're going to talk a lot more about MSI later as well. But just when you talk about the individual part, how all the players can keep up, no one is getting smashed. You know, I looked in at MSI suddenly, and I just picture a world. Kingzone shows up, Bwipo is in the starting lineup, Khan takes the J, smacks him in the head with the hammer, he dies a few times. We all saying and being like, huh, that might be a bit of a problem right there, you know, but we obviously don't know if that's going to happen, so...
Well, the thing is I'm a Jace player myself, so I have a good idea of what to do against him, but it's also a matter of draft as well. You know, don't give the team that opportunity, I think is really important, you know, like, I think we communicate that very clearly, you know, like, Dylan, don't give Peanut Olaf, just don't, you know, it can be a 9-1 matchup, just try your hardest not to do it. For example, you know, like, I don't think that's anything special or I'm leaking anything specifically there, it's just
a pretty common one, right?
Dylan is gonna watch this and have a talk with you.
Why would even Peanut know his Olaf is that good?
You know, I think it's when you're playing against a team that is considered better than you, like, throw them off a little, you know, like, Joy brings it up sometimes, like, if you keep losing to the same team, just stop playing League of Legends. You know, like, start doing something different. Whatever it is, do something different, you know, like, whether it is, you know, you just...
No, what I say is that I want to go into MSI and play how we play, because if you lose to Kingzone at MSI, you know, it's not the end of the world, but you can learn a lot from it if you actually play what you're good at. I'm not saying draft 3 losing lanes against Kingzone, but I don't want to see a Falcos Draven in the bot lane and then afterwards like lose and then say we did not get anything from this experience. But at the same time, if you're in a best of 5 against Kingzone and you're 0-2, then it's really time to say, guys, we're not going to play League of Legends against these guys anymore. I don't know what we're going to play, but we're not going to play this game anymore.
Yeah.
It's good, yeah, because we see a lot of teams just do the same thing and keep losing.
Yeah, no, it's Kingzone is Kingzone, you know. Like, all these players, like, they seem so good, but like in the same vein, I feel like I don't think every role gets outskilled. I think that I think I can admit, like, if I would play against Khan, that Khan is a better player than me.
We're gonna hit all of Kingzone here in a little bit when we talk about MSI. I want to save a little something to keep the viewers baited, you know, because now you started. Now they want to know where the else goes. We call this clickbait.
Bwipo better than Khan.
That's the narrative now, no? I'm the best top player in the world.
Best top player in the world. All right.
We cannot lose. I'm on the team.
There you go. So something we've been kind of talking about in general right now is the level of Europe. Since we've already hit on it a little bit, I just kind of want to formally ask, like, who do you guys feel like is your closest competitor? Because from everything we've said, clearly Fnatic is the top, currently uncontested in that case. But who's actually chasing your heels, or who do you think will be chasing your heels in the future?
I think we've been saying from the start it should be Misfits. I mean, until they finished 7th, right? Like, that was the team we didn't want to...
I hate them so much. They're so annoying.
There were a few victory laps in our house when they finished 7th. We were really making fun of it. And really happy because we didn't have to play them in playoffs.
Right.
Because we felt that was the team that could beat us. Also, we respected Vitality a ton. Just because they exploited our weaknesses in the regular split, even though we went 1-on-1, somehow it felt like it was a 0-2.
Yeah. That was 0-2. Yeah. That was a 0-2.
Camp caps.
A mental 0-2.
Yeah. So when we get closer to summer, do you feel like that we will have a closer summer season? Are those guys going to like level up and catch up and be able to outpace maybe a little bit since or do you feel like it's still just going to be Fnatic clear at the top? Maybe we'll have that playoff with Misfits and Vitality, but still Fnatic winning it out.
I mean, I think the biggest thing that people overlook is that we went 14-4. But even the games that we lost, the game we lost against H2K at the start, the 2 games we lost against Misfits, these could have been wins, right? Like, one play could have gone in our favor and it would have been a win. And then you'd be looking at a 17-1 team. And that's a lot scarier than 14-4 to me, at least. Like, even 16-2, it's like, whew, these guys almost don't lose.
I also want to counter-argue that because we've definitely had some wins.
Some in there.
Yeah, we may have been 8k down in 20 minutes, I think, against G2, for example. And,
there's been both, but I
You just got shut down. You just got
I just remember
massive
those
shut down.
wins where it's like,
But it's
That's fair enough.
it's always player mathematics, right? If this would happen, we would have won this one. But
Exactly.
they never think if we didn't do this, we would have lost.
Because I don't play them. If I play the game, I remember the mistake. You know, even like right now in the finals, I know I fucked up at least twice. You know, like it wasn't even minute 5 and I died. You know, like come on, I fucked up.
It is very interesting in Europe because the last 2 years we obviously had G2 kind of sitting on top, and now Fnatic, and it's often felt like, at least going into playoffs, that we had one team a level above the rest. Now, I'm not saying that team couldn't lose, because we saw G2 obviously almost lose like to Spice in that quarterfinal, and we also had somewhat close series against Fnatic in the past. But we often have one team that does stand a bit above for different reasons. G2, I always feel like it was more. They were like just that smart team that had super reliable bot lane. You can always win BU5s. And then like Trick and Perks was obviously also a pretty good mid-jungle duo to have in Europe. Where with Fnatic, in this case, it was more, to me at least, like they just have the best carries possible, and they are a team that fully understands how to utilize those carries. And the other teams in Europe are not like good enough at certain parts of the game to fully exploit it. Like none of the teams are super clean at getting early leads and then winning the game. Because G2 and Vitality could win early game against you guys, but not always close the game. If they had been fantastic at doing that, we could have seen a team maybe beat Fnatic in a best of 5. But that obviously was not the case, which is why you guys ended up also 3-0ing the final. And Misfits was one of the teams where we could say these guys in the past could have been smart enough on a macro level to bring potentially a huge challenge, but then they didn't make playoffs. So it made obviously you guys really stand out, and it looked like no team actually had a complete counter to Fnatic. And I'm not sure they're going to have that for Summer Split.
I don't know. I think a big thing of Misfits underperforming so much is that they had a really good international result. And I've had this experience about MSI that after you have had a really good result and you reach your goals as an individual player, your motivation is going to drop really low, or your arrogance is going to rise very high. And both lead to a lot of catastrophic failure. If you remember G2 in the start of the summer last year, it was atrocious.
Oh yeah, slow start.
1-5 at Rift Rivals, I believe, as well. But hopefully they get back on the horse now. Well, hopefully not for Fnatic and the fans, right? But usually a loss motivates way more than a win does, like than performing good. I think performing very good internationally or domestically is a way bigger threat than not making your goal.
Do you guys need Misfits and other teams to be better for you to keep improving?
I don't think so. No, I think the way we've been approaching the game, it doesn't really matter. I mean, we need individuals that don't get solo killed at level 3 every game. Yeah, we've seen that a bit this week, right? In scrims. But then you can't practice anymore. So we do need a team that has really strong individuals where you can actually play League of Legends against. And then it doesn't really matter if they are Clown Fiesta team or if they have really good macro. As long as you can practice what you are trying to improve on, it's whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, it's good to hear for Fnatic fans. I think they can continue to improve, because the frequent problem that we hear about from a team that's a top team that remains a top team is that it's really hard to improve within the context of your own region because no one is pushing you. But the fact that you've developed a system where, yes, albeit you are relying on people not to get solo killed at level 3, does sound like a healthy step and a bit of progress. And now looking at, with you guys as a solidified top team in Europe, what is the level, do you think, of Europe overall if we start to look internationally, if we start to compare across regions? How do we feel about it? Because I think the big thing this year, right, was all the exports, all the players, a lot of names leaving. And I think there are still a lot of European fans, especially as we come to MSI, maybe worried about how Europe's going to perform.
It's kind of difficult for me to say because I didn't get to play all these players. But overall, I think that it's difficult for me to say because I feel like Fnatic has the advantage of having those 2 carries, right? We have Caps and Reckless, and like I said earlier, at a certain stage, they're going to outperform everybody else in the region in a team fight, for example, or even in the laning phase. They're just going to outperform you unless like it's a really bad situation for them. And I don't feel like it's reliable to create those bad situations often enough for us to be challenged at the point, like in our current point in time. And I think that kind of like ties into the play-ins for MSI as well. I feel like like Supermassive and Gambit are doing really well because they have that advantage in those lanes, and it's the same for us in Europe. I feel is that our carries don't get challenged, or like when they get challenged, it usually hits a point where the other laners can't keep up. Like the other players can't just deal more damage or be more effective in team fights, for example, because that's how we won, right? That's how we got here, and that's how we won, is by team fighting like that, because that's just what it was. I feel like it's not like they don't have the talent individually, just something that like comes together for us as a team. We have 2 stronger carries, and I think the other roles aren't necessarily as impactful, even though they might be equally good. Like, for example, top laners. I think there's plenty of really good top laners in Europe, don't get me wrong. And honestly, I think there would have been a different final if people banned Swain. I know that meme died, really. Like, that meme died. But I'm going to bring it back alive. Like, G2 got Swain, I believe, against Splice, like, what, 2 or 3 times?
Yep.
We got Swain against Vitality 2 or 3 times. Yeah. You know, like, I think that actually skewed the end, like, that skewed the finals, right? Like, I think it would have been a different finals if people actually respected this champion. But overall, like, the entire level of Europe, ignoring the Swain, because I think that champion actually, like, I think
I thought we were gonna ignore it.
yeah, but respectfully, I think Vitality Fnatic would have been a better finals. But
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it was a good semifinal.
no, like, it was good. It's just they gave Swain away.
What about Fnatic Splice?
I think it would have been a 3-0.
I think it would have been a 3-0 as well. They were not a bad team though. I think stylistically they were like, they had a few ways of competing with us. You know, with the range support thing and then the hyper carry AD. But yeah, it's difficult to say, right? Like, the way it happened, it was all around. I think the teams are fine. I just think that they have certain gimmicks. I think that's the biggest problem in Europe. They have gimmicks.
Absolutely,
Yeah, like
Things you can abuse.
exactly.
Well, for example, Splice relying on having their range supports, like playing the Zillion and the Lulu. It's just, if you play this team in a best of 5, they're not going to get away with that. Like, you can easily adjust to that in the draft phase.
They did first pick Braum for Kasane in the third place game, you know, as a change.
And what was really sad is we scrimmed them for a week or 2 before the semis, and they were playing almost exclusively melee supports, and then they go into the best of 5, and it's back to the Lulu, Janna, Zillion. And they were actually doing pretty well on it too.
Yeah.
Now we got a Twitter question that fits this topic also about international level. It's from, I think it's a Chinese fangirl. Her name is Froskuren, I believe.
That Chinese fan.
Yeah, that Chinese fangirl. You guys, of course, might know her. She's casting at the LPL at the moment, and she asked if you think some of the other European teams could perform well internationally based on what we saw in the spring split. If we sent G2 or Splice or Vitality.
Yeah, let's just say the split is Worlds, and we sent 3, or MSI was Worlds, and we sent 3 teams. How do you think it would work out?
I think other European teams would not do well against RNG and Team Liquid. But if you do the world kind of thing where you send RC2 against RC2, I think it would be pretty even.
Okay.
But I don't think any other European team would have much of a chance against like Team Liquid or RNG or Kingzone, you know.
Quick reason why.
Individually, macro, everything. I don't,
For me, it's mostly the gimmicks. Like, really, this makes it so much easier to play against these teams, because you know they're gonna want to do that, and either you know they're gonna do it and you have your strategy against it, or you stop them from doing it and they're just strictly worse at what, like, that's not their gimmick. Like G2, for example, like, they want to carry top, right? You take them off of that, they're just worse than with it, right? And Vitality as well, you know, just send 3 people to the top lane. That was their gimmick.
I mean, yeah, the gimmick was the Talia Olaf, and then we actually gave it to them every game, I think.
Yeah. And we're just like, you know, it's fine. I'll just survive. You know, just tell me, you know, just survive.
The Bwipo lifestyle there in the top lane. Just survive. You don't have to be calm.
That's what that's kind of what we just did the entire way through, I think.
So Fnatic can compete, and we talked a lot more about Europe and how Fnatic is definitely still at the top of Europe, and specifically why. But how does Youngbuck, I think you're probably the most experienced person here, maybe Deficio also because of just how many international events you've casted and looked at teams. But like, how are we actually looking in terms of shaping up year to year? Like, if we compare the Fnatic that we are sending to this MSI, how do we compare to the G2 of last year?
Very similarly, and much better than the 2016 run. I think we're playing to reach the finals again. If I look at the scrims we had against Team Liquid, and I've studied a bit of RNG, I would say we're slightly better, but not good enough that I would say, yeah, we're going to 2-0 these guys. Like, it could even be a 0-2. Like, but I think we're slightly better, and if we're given a best of 5 against these teams, we'll probably win 3-1, 3-2. That's my opinion.
Sure.
But I wouldn't say that one region is much better than the other. other than Korea, of course.
Yeah, I mean, but Kingzone, we don't
Yeah.
talk about Kingzone.
They're a little bit better.
So Kingzone included, we'll just leave that gap over there, and I won't ask the stupid gap is closing question. We'll leave Kingzone on their high horse. But do you feel like every other region is pretty close right now, at least, or which regions are kind of falling behind? Because so far LPL, EULCS, and NALCS you've kind of mentioned. LMS down, not competing. How are they looking? Like, what's the stats with the rest of the regions?
I haven't watched much LMS, so I don't really know about them. But I always felt like Flashwood was a very good team and a very good scrim partner because they had very good macro, but they just were lacking individually. And if you're a smaller region, it's very hard to find people who can actually compete with the Caps, the Reckless, the Khan, Faker, BDD, you know.
I like that group you put together.
Yeah. And I think RNG is probably individually equal to us. I think it's fair to say. Maybe I know a lot of people say they're also better than us, but I think their macro is lacking compared to EU and NA. And I think that NA is a little bit better macro than China. Different macro from EU, but not necessarily better. We've definitely noticed some very different things from what we're used to when we scrim them, which is really fun because you get to add these kind of things and like discuss them, right? Which is the greatest thing about MSI. You get to play these really good teams and then be like, wait a minute, we've never thought about it in this way. Like, is this something we can add to our gameplay? And then it's almost unfair for the rest of the teams in Europe because we get this opportunity and they don't.
Hopefully you bring it back to Europe and they learn from it and they can also improve.
Yeah. No, last year we learned a lot from playing against SKT. We scrimmed them, we played them on stage, right? And we were like, oh, wow, okay, this is something we can definitely do better. And now we've been scrimming Team Liquid and there were specific things where like, oh, we didn't know you could make a comeback play like that. Like, that's very interesting. How do we stop it and how do we copy this?
Yeah.
It's a really fun thing to experience.
That's always the great thing about international games. Even if you end up losing a lot of games on stage, you know, from the outside, it's all terrible. Everyone is flaming you for dropping games. But as a team, there's obviously a lot to always pick up, especially also when you get to play teams like Kingzone, because we always hear this every single time. Like when you face one of the best Korean teams or the best Korean team, there's just certain things they do that no one will ever do that to you in your own region. So you're not used to that kind of thing happening and how it can punish you. And then you see this team do it and you're just like, oh, okay. Apparently if you do this, we just don't know what to do. We just lose. And you can actually do that yourself.
How much more do you learn when you play against those teams versus just, you know, let's say watch their VODs? Because Kingzone are obviously a good team. You can go back and watch all their games in the regular season. Is it that teams play differently in scrims that helps you learn more from them? Or is it just that you get to experience it firsthand?
I think it's really experiencing your own system or your way of your playing and communicating against their system. Because we watch Kingzone, we watch KT, and I'm sure there's people who've watched thousands of competitive games, but they don't have the skill of those teams, right? So just watching these teams or studying them doesn't make you a good team. And I think having the ability to play against the teams gives you such a big opportunity to actually learn from them and see where they crush you and where you can actually maybe crush them, right?
Yeah, it looks to be the case. To kind of round out this discussion before we look ahead towards MSI, do you have any... Korea is the clear number one. Just say that from the start. You talked about the potential to go back and forth with a lot of these teams. You could 2-0 them, you could 0-2 them, the best of 5 where you're really confident. If it comes down to it, if it was all best of 5s, who do you actually think is the strongest region after Korea right now?
Europe.
Thank you. That's all.
No bias.
Thank you. That will be all. That's all I need to hear. Who's number 3 and number 4 then, though? Because I think we do have some NA listeners, and I think they'll want to hear. Not that you should just say NA for number 3. I think that people will just be curious. But I got one.
No, it's a good question. I don't know. I think NA has better macro than China, and I don't know how individually they stack up.
I mean, I think it's a matter of what the teams play. Because, for example, RNG has let me. He's on the dog duty. Like, I think, for example, if you match that with your own dog champion, you don't necessarily get too much value out of that. But if you're like a team like Kingzone that thrives off abusing people that pick those champions, then that's going to be a bonus for you. And I'm not sure if Team Liquid gets that bonus because Impact has been the guy that's just, you know, he just picks it up and he lives on his island, right? And then he just, no matter what happens in his lane, he just shows up. Like, it doesn't matter if he got ahead or he fell behind, he shows up. And I think that's the strength of Liquid. And I'm not sure. I didn't watch enough of RNG yet because, again, I'm focused on the top lane. I'm trying to figure out what the top laners are doing different, what I can learn from. But I think that's the biggest deal for MSI. It's only one team. So if you have a good matchup against the other team in terms of what you like playing and how you like playing, I think that can play a lot in the rankings.
Yeah, I mean, that's also why like rating regions going into MSI is so difficult because it's one team going.
Right, exactly.
So in this case, if Fnatic ends up going to the final, we can all dance and say Europe, second greatest region, even though we don't know if our second best team could actually do anything.
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
is why, of course, we have Rift Rivals to determine
That's
who
where
they
we
Yeah, that's
to really solidly confirm.
And I'm glad we'll have Rift Rivals for the first time because last year obviously never happened and we didn't see any Rift Rivals.
And we're, of course, giving NA the customary handicap where we fly.
Yeah, so we get jet lag. That's super unfair, I think. I mean, if we lose, that's our reason.
naturally.
We can prepare our excuses in advance. Now, interesting to hear. I think the last thing on the table here is just MSI and just talking about it,
Yes,
because you're right. Might not be fair to rate some of those regions when it's just a single team attending. So let's just get into it. Let's talk about some of the teams going. Let's talk about Fnatic as they stand. My first thing is you talk about these weaknesses or these exploits where, Con versus Let Me could just get exposed because Con thrives on that. Do you feel like from your prep that Fnatic has any of those weaknesses that you're concerned about? Whether you can share them or not, are there things that you're worried about could be exploited?
From my point of view, it's difficult to say because it hasn't happened yet. I think it's possible, of course. Like that's what makes an international tournament fun, right? It's competition. I think every team can beat every team in that sense, and that plays a role into that. But as of now, I think as long as we stick to what we're good at and what we like doing and what we know will work, I don't think it's going to happen. But, who knows, maybe he pulls out an Asus again and,
Hey.
Oh, man.
Memories are alive.
That dancing rift hell, man.
Yeah,
it's
like,
burned
it's
into
just-
my memory.
Yeah, it's just...
I had to cast that game.
Yeah.
Man. I was like, oh, no, please, end this game.
Like, that's what I'm saying, from what I heard, it was expected, like, Nasus was a pick in the Maokai at the time.
Yeah.
And, like, from what we know right now, like, if I'm picking a champion, there are a few question marks in terms of what can be good and what's going to be done, because I think that's a really big thing about different regions is that generally there's a lot of champions that are pretty good, but certain regions have tendencies to pick others. Like, for example, NA had the hardcore tank meta. They were Sion into Ornn into Cho'Gath every game. Like, there was no exceptions. Nobody would, like, go out of their way to pick a Camille or pick... Like, they would just ban GP and then pick tanks. That's all they would do. Even though, like the Swain, for example, could be pretty good into a tank or anything like this. So I'm not sure if other regions, like, have that right now. It looks like everybody's pretty much solidified on the tank meta, or at least were on the prior patch. Now that we have Conqueror, that could change. And obviously Conqueror makes a lot of champions viable, or more viable.
Do you actually think it's enough? Because just judging from Masters and play-ins, I have not seen a lot of Conqueror top laners just take over and become the meta.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. I don't think so. But that doesn't mean Kingzone thinks that.
Sure, yeah.
Like, they can just be like, Jax, like, this is the champion. He wins every lane. He does this and that. And maybe it does, and maybe they have a style that creates that situation where Jax is the best champion in the game. But I don't think so. I don't have the style either to pull it off, I think. I don't think so. Maybe I do.
We'll find out. It's a mystery.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't want to let them know.
Like, I'm not sure.
If this turns out to be the biggest long con and you first game Conqueror
I
Jax,
just
and
pull
you
out,
guys just
yeah.
smash with Conqueror Jax for the rest of the tournament.
It's just an example, like, that's the thing. That,
I mean, Youngbuck right now is sitting and kind of doing the,
The Conqueror Jax, don't let him know.
it's just, like, that rune, and just it opens up a certain set of champions that might be good, might not be good, and I think that different regions will have a different approach to it. I think the handshake at the start of MSI will be probably tank meta. I don't know for sure, but I think there's enough room where there could be different things that could surprise all the teams, right? Because, like, maybe what we're doing right now will surprise other teams, and maybe what they're doing will surprise us. That's what makes an international tournament an international tournament. That's what makes it interesting, because then you have to see the teams adapt to the meta. Yeah. In case that, the Conqueror is the best keystone in the game and you cannot play against it. I don't personally think so, but maybe it is.
This might not be the tournament where we get to see it, based on the fact that 3 out of the 4 major region teams have mainly tank players.
Yeah, that's my
in the top
point.
lane,
That's what I'm saying. But they have one region that does.
Yeah.
And if they just have so much success with that one strategy, then it's a matter of do the people stick to their gut and just accept that they're going to be second place, or are they going to try and adapt and also follow the meta? Because that's the thing in a tournament, right? In this type of setting, is
that's
that
why
people have
Khan
to
is
follow.
dangerous.
Big question.
They have to follow the meta, like follow what's winning at the time. At least I believe so. Maybe Joey thinks differently. That you should just stick to your gut. Like from the start, you set your meta at the start of the tournament, and then you just go through. And if you go 0-10 because your meta is wrong, I don't think so. I think you should adapt.
History would prove that's not how Joey does. I think we've seen G2 adapt.
No, but there is no winning, because if you stick to your guns and lose, it was the wrong approach.
Yeah.
And if you actually adapt, we should just play what we practice, guys.
It's true.
If you lose, it's always you always made the wrong decision.
Yeah.
So I would like to jump in on the Fnatic one. Obviously, from the outside, not being part of Fnatic specifically, so I can, I guess, give my honest opinion on this team going into it. And we talked a little bit about this last week, and looking at Fnatic and you guys with, strong team fighting, two great carries that outshine everyone in Europe, that part, I think, will still be a strong point around Fnatic at MSI, but won't give you the same advantage we've seen back in Europe. Like, if you take RNG versus Fnatic, it's Xiaohu and Uzi versus Caps and Reckless. And I just don't see Caps and Reckless being a level above those two guys, and therefore Fnatic will have that as a clear advantage. Now, there will definitely be things where RNG will make some questionable decisions on the map that can be exploited. But the way I often look at these, especially BO1s, is a lot of times once you get to the late game where you want to punish RNG for terrible macro or, abandoning side lanes, the theory ends up not actually being what happens, and then when we get down to the game itself, you end up in these big brawly team fights. And RNG last year at Worlds, from talking to Mithy a lot, and I want to hear if you agree on this one, Youngbuck, we all came in with the mindset that they did have very questionable macro and decision making, but when you played against them, they actually were really good at abusing small windows to quickly force a play that forced your hand.
Yeah, so they're really good at initiating team fights. And if you make an error in tempo, they will actually catch you. Probably they don't even realize that there is a macro error happening, right?
They just see a potential fight.
They just see it. They see the fight in front of them. And it takes so much discipline and game knowledge and focus as the team with superior macro to not fall into that trap and not make the mistake. Because China, for example, really loves the 5v5 bot lane fights at 4 minutes, I think, right? So, but it might happen in our game where we gank bot lane and there's two people TPing, and then in that moment you have to make the right decision. Can you win this fight at level 4? And if you do follow up and you lose the fight, it doesn't matter if you're better at macro. If you're 2k gold behind 4 minutes, you lose.
Exactly.
Isn't it? So I think we have better macro, but I know, and this came from a lot of experience scrimming unicorns last year, you need to be a step beyond better than the other team in terms of macro if you want to not let them play animal style.
And I think that's going to be that great test for Fnatic is, are we going to see Fnatic go in, actually show they are a smarter team than RNG, stick to it, discipline is there, it becomes one of those games where it just feels like they're running around and RNG never gets the fight they want? Or do we get what we typically get from, again, a lot of years of now casting international tournaments? It ends up in that brawl where the decision making is so difficult on stage in the moment, and then suddenly it's just team fight on team fight on team fight. And then you look at RNG and you can say, this is what they want to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it gets hard, man. It gets really difficult.
Yeah, which is why I say I think we're better than RNG, but I will definitely not predict a 2-0. I will not predict anything, actually. I just think that's really scary because there's a very reasonable chance in the best of one that there will be a slip-up where someone thinks the fight is good when it's actually just not as good as he thinks it is, and you can just lose the game off of that, or someone moves a wave too early and you end up in a team fight again. I mean, we've had it happen at Worlds. We had a 4k gold lead, I think, with Rift Herald up, and we moved from a minion wave too soon, and basically the game is over, even though we have a 4k gold lead.
Yeah. So I'm curious, the concept of carries being outclassed is interesting to me. Do you feel like now on the world stage that you can continue to outclass other carries? Because Deficio is saying that he doesn't feel like that's a factor. Obviously, Xiaohu and Uzi are both strong players. BDD and Prey, you have very strong players. But do you feel like that's something you can still leverage at all? And then if you can't, do you feel like your team, how much weaker do you feel like your team is because of it? And I'm going to continue to ramble because I realize this isn't the best question because I haven't stated my opinion. Ready to start. So my thing is I don't think we got to see, from a fan perspective, what it looked like when Fnatic was even in terms of skills against their laners, right? Like you guys have said it yourself, you always knew late game, caps reckless, caps reckless, caps reckless. I don't think we've gotten to see a game in Europe really this season where they've been completely contested.
One game I remember, Misfits versus Fnatic. Senkuk's on Anivia. It ended up being that 50-minute long game of like, but again, it's the only example I got in mind, where it was like super back and forth carry-wise.
If we look at the other teams, right, like there's an argument for when you guys would play against Splice that Kabe maybe would be able to go toe-to-toe with that late game stuff, but Niski wouldn't be able to go toe-to-toe mid lane, right? And then maybe there's an argument for, but it feels like no team in Europe can match you in both mid and AD carry. You guys would always have an advantage in one of those roles pretty clearly, I would say. And so I'm wondering, like, do you feel like you can still have those advantages? And if you can't, how much does this actually affect the game plan and the style from Fnatic we saw in the EU LCS?
I think bot lane's really stacked at MSI. Like, I think bot lane's stacked. Like, I wouldn't say necessarily that. I don't even think it's realistic to say we'll pull ahead there. You know, like break even. Sometimes maybe even lose because like it's really stacked. Mid lane, however, BDD, yeah, he's really good. Zhao, yeah, sure. Pobelter?
That's the questionable one.
I'm not sure. I really don't know. I think Caps is... Personally, I think Caps is better than Pobelter. I think that's where we will be able to get something.
I think that's a fair statement, yeah.
Other than that, no, I don't think so. But I definitely think that the mid lane matchup against Team Liquid is in our favor. And whether we'll be able to pull advantages out of that or not, obviously depends on a lot of different factors, but I think it's realistic to say that we can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just think we can't rely on just winning team fights later on, based on being better players, right? So we're not going to draft 3 losing lanes and hope for the best, but it doesn't mean that we cannot draft for late game. It just means that we cannot draft 3 losing lanes and then hope we get a team fight. But it also doesn't mean we have to draft 3 winning lanes to win the game because whatever reason. I think we can have very balanced drafts. Like I said in the philosophy, we can draft that we are better than the opponent. Not that they are bad or that we're good.
Yeah.
Just draft very normal, draft strong team fights with good
solid
balanced
lanes, good scaling.
Yeah, just the Maokai, the orange, the reliable situation. No, I'm kidding. It's just like, you know what I mean? Like there's like this really just a really standard comp. I think is what will work for us. I think if we can just play standard, I do think we're top 2. Personally, I think if the game is normal and we can just play our game, they play their game, we just bash heads. I think top 2 is realistic for Fnatic.
And I think, like, if you guys get top 2, one, of course, great achievement already. But also just looking at, like, it was so huge for Fnatic overall and the way I think we look at Fnatic, because we're so used to just seeing, like, these great carries. Like, all the other players are doing everything they should do to enable the carry. So it's not just 2 people only, but if we get to see like a Fnatic walk in and just like cleanly dismantle an RNG or something in the early game, cleanly set up the Baron, take it, something you guys did struggle with during the split was like these first Barons typically wasn't the easiest setup for you guys, which was why you ended up often going to late game as well. But if we start seeing that, it's obviously a great testament to the improvement of the team. So that would be amazing. I think like this tournament could be a fantastic thing for Fnatic to really also show what they've been working on behind the scenes that they didn't necessarily have to pull out in Europe because they could win, in more reliable ways.
I mean, I love games like that. Like if you guys first game come on stage, dismantle a team, anyone who predicted anything is instantly screwed.
I mean, I think get screwed really fast too. Like if Kingzone wins the group and they choose us in the semifinals, you might not see us go top 2 at all,
of course.
Like that's the thing. I think that's a really big deal for this MSI is the way the format is that if you look like the weaker team, but you're still top 4, if Kingzone probably is going to be first, if they are, they're going to snipe you, They're going to take you out first. They're going to be like, yeah, these guys are the weak link. We're going to the finals straight away. Let's go. So if you look like a stronger team, or at least the team that they think is not as good as a match for them, I think top 2 is much more realistic all of a sudden. But I think that's kind of the test for
it's okay
the 3
to go
teams.
0-2 versus RNG as long as you go 1-1 versus the Kingzone. So you put that fear into their heart.
It's. I think it's really important that you show something to the first place team, I guess. And again, I that's kind of cool.
Yes.
I actually, they're the king of the group. They get to choose. Who is
walk into the room and beat the biggest guy first.
Who, you know what I mean? Who's gonna get pummeled here?
Imagine that nightmare scenario where they're like, you know what, Fnatic clearly is the other really good team. Okay, we'll take them out first.
Yeah, but that's my point. Like, if they want a handshake on that, I can respect that. But is that the smartest decision? I'm not sure.
Yeah, Caps also had this great idea that since every team is always very respectful to Koreans, we should be very disrespectful because then maybe we can win, right?
Like it's scared.
But then, what if you get second in group and they just snipe you because they don't like you?
No, I was just saying that we should just like all hard flame them and then they're gonna throw them off. They're gonna tilt, using hard flame. Oh, BDD, like international choker. Say things like and then the BDDs are gonna be like, oh, what? Everybody's usually
know what to do anymore.
Everyone usually respects us. What happened? Maybe they do know something we don't.
See, once again though, the Koreans are a step ahead because they're so used to trash talking. Every final there's a trash talk video, so they get in the head. They get the thick skin, and we can't even use that anymore.
And that's the Korean production is too strong. They get them to go in there and practice talking trash. We thought it was for spectacle, but they're preparing against Caps' brilliant mind game.
That one strategy, potentially. Have you guys watched a lot of the Kingzone games during the split?
Yeah, we actually study them a lot and have a lot of macro presentation about what they're doing on the map. So
right. Yeah. So instead of us talking about Fnatic, where you guys obviously can't reveal too many things, I'm more interested in hearing like, what is your opinion of this Kingzone team? Like, are they just the perfect team at the moment?
I think their games were very slow against Afrika Freaks, and if we have a slow game, I don't see why we cannot take a map off of them. Right, so if we just don't draft 3 losing lanes, sure, Kingzone is probably the best team in the world. Let's be fair. I don't see why we would not be able to take a map off of them if the draft is proper and we don't and we have a slow game like that. Like if the stars align like that, and it's not that difficult. If you just play normal League of Legends and have the draft for it, I think we can just win that big team fight that we need
in the late game.
Yeah, the mid-late game.
I think the mismatches or like the potential mismatches are top lane and maybe jungle. I think Brox is really good, but Peanut is Peanut. Right, like this guy's.
He's got a great split.
Yeah, like Peanut Khan. That's when I look at that and I see that on the other end of the scoreboard, that's scary. Like I need to step up, or at least I already feel like okay, like I need to play well. I can't like make any mistakes or I'm gonna get punished for it. And I think if we can avoid any situations where this mismatch actually gets punished, I think it's very realistic that we can take a map off them in a slow game. Yes, I agree with Joey there.
Okay. I mean, because that's obviously one of the things when you look at every team will look at Kingzone and say, okay, what can we do against them? Is there a way we can beat them? I think in the group stage in best of 1, there's a lot of chances of upsets. Like we've seen a lot of the best Korean teams drop games. Like SKT got 4th place, at MSI group stage last year.
Lost to Flash Wolves last year in best of 1 as well.
Exactly. Like I think a lot can happen there. And it's not like the Kingzone guys have always been 100% reliable on the international stage. So there's definitely a chance of it happening. But I think it's cool to hear the late game philosophy on it, because it feels like a little bit like the G2 matchup, just in a way, like, top lane, got to be careful up there, neutralize that matchup. We know the late game is where we can strike, and it makes sense. Like that does seem to be a place where some teams can try and match them, because on early game snowballing,
they're really good.
Especially with Peanut and Khan, it just feels so hard.
BDD has a champion pull for it too, right? Like
he can pick anything.
But they're specialized for it. If you look at their split, like if they could get it, like they're the guys that started with Sion mid, right? Like I'm pretty sure at least they started with the Sion mid and the Galio and then Natalia. So these guys want to snowball the early game. Like that's their comfort zone. And then if you take that away and you have that slow game, I think there's League of Legends to be played against them. I don't think you're gonna just flop. If you give that to them, I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen, because I don't know how good they are and if our lanes are going to hold it. In that case, like the thing I'm thinking about is like, how would I match up against that, or how would Soaz match up against that, right? Because we do have that advantage that we have a 6th player. In me,
I'll probably still take Khan. But still.
Okay. Wow, thanks.
I mean, everyone put Kingzone first, but I do want to call you out, Deficio, specifically, because I don't know if you listened to all of last week, but
of course they did.
Yeah,
Of course.
Then you heard Deficio predict you guys as 4th place in the group.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything to say for yourself before we just? Also, please harass him. You guys seem really fine with this, and I would really.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, like I said, I think it's, if we're 4th place, I think it's worst case scenario, because realistically, 4th place team looks the worst. So I'm not sure. Did you put Kingzone first in that ranking?
I put them second on mine.
First,
RNG first.
I had to be spicy a little bit
but then we get RNG Fnatic semifinals in that case if we're 4th place. Like thinking the
Sure,
fourth place is the worst
that
and
could be
RNG's
okay.
first place. Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that. So that's why I'm okay with it. Like
My scenario looks pretty good now.
yeah, if we're thinking about it
You hear
that way.
It's not BM. Deficio's not selling you out. He's setting up the dream
he's
scenario for the
You're one step ahead of
semifinals.
us. But yeah, like I think in that case, if they do end up choosing us, now if they choose Liquid, then your plan failed.
Oh.
But I think, like I said, I think all the teams are evenly matched. Honestly, well, other than Kingzone, okay, sure. The three other teams, so China, NA, and EU, are probably really close together.
Yeah.
Of course.
If we get fourth, it's just not the end of the world.
Exactly. Like, I think it's within reason.
Yeah,
I think as long as we make it to Paris, we made the expectations, and I think making the finals would be. I think it just depends too much. It depends too much on what happens with first place, because that's what makes it fun, of course, but it's what makes it really scary. Because you need to show up in groups. So if you end up being fourth place and Kingzone is first, and they see you as the weak link, they're gonna take you out first, 100% of times.
Yeah. You talked about, in the group stage, you talked about there's a lot of potential to go 2-0, 0-2, 1-1. It's all over the place. It's hard to predict, lock it down. But there was some confidence for best of fives. Do you feel like if you play any other team besides Kingzone, you will make it to finals?
I believe so. And I can say that because I proved that last year at MSI. Right?
I mean, yeah.
But the most one would be a best of 5 between an EU and an NA team. Because I don't think we've ever seen that, have we?
In an MSI semifinal or Worlds? No.
No.
No, it would be in Team Liquid Fnatic. Looks cool.
Or do we count Rift Rivals, Unicorns against whatever?
We didn't have a semifinal. We only had a final there.
Yeah.
It was group stage into final.
That's not a real best of 5.
Yeah,
It's
no, that
exhibition.
did never happen. It was a practice tournament.
Practice.
I don't know. It's interesting though with the like, so obviously looking at the group rankings right there. Best of ones always make it so difficult because you only get to play twice against these different teams. And if you go into the first game and something does go wrong in the draft, the pick surprises you, or like we've seen that happen so many times in the past. The Olaf pick from CLG at Worlds against you guys, where you did not expect it, right? And suddenly a game where you were favored to win swung quickly over to the other team. And these kind of things will happen very often. But I kind of feel like with 3 of the teams, Team Liquid, RNG, and Kingzone, I feel like I know what I'm getting. I don't have big question marks of like exactly how they're going to play. Like it's actually only Fnatic where I have that. Where I'm like, again, I don't know if they will just come in and say, our late game is great, we stick to late game. Or if suddenly you play like against Vitality where there was a lot more early game, camp for caps. If people don't remember the first game of the semifinal, Broxer went mid probably 10 times. Within like 10 minutes and just like destroyed poor Jizuke in there. And we got to see a much more early game focused Fnatic. And, because I don't know if that's the mindset you guys are going to enter the tournament with, it's really hard to actually predict Fnatic's overall performance. And obviously you guys will sit here and say it's going to be great. And you shouldn't reveal if you're going to play early or late game. But this is
the thing we didn't think about when we invited you guys onto the podcast. We're like, ooh, we can talk about MSI. And they're like,
because we want to talk about the other teams.
But also we can't because like we want to know everything, but we also don't want you guys to give anything away.
Team Liquid. Opinions.
Hot
Great,
takes.
terrible.
Belter, worst mid at the tournament.
I think
At the tournament.
Currently, among the top 4, he's definitely the worst.
I mean, among the top 4, let's make that clear, okay? Pobelter, I'm sure he's better than 5th and 6th teams. They're not clear
what
yet.
about GBM? Is he better than GBM?
Yes.
Probably.
I
Like the thing,
no contest.
I mean, the thing is about GBM is that he has his cheese picks, right? Like, yeah, he's got the cheese picks. So I'm not sure if he's willing to pull them out or not. I'm sure he is. But I think that's the only question mark. I think what's GBM gonna pull out? I think that's like the big deal, and that's what I also think about like Supermassive. They said they were going to be able to beat us. They could take.
They're not
off
even
us.
at group stages just yet.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying they say they are, and I think that it's really relying on him and Snowflower, because I think the other lanes just can't add up. Like there's no way they can take a straight laning phase against any of the top 4 teams for longer than 10 minutes. I think there will be advantages, whether it be CS or kills. That's just how it usually is. I think that's the biggest problem the emergent regions have, is that they just don't have a big enough pool of talent to match up against the major regions.
All right, but mostly I was memeing on the Pillbuilder thing. But I do think he has a weakness. But I do want to talk about the rest of Team Liquid
course.
and how the rest of the matchups stack up. Because, I mean, I think everyone's excited for bot lane all the time forever.
Of course.
Because of the 80 carries that are here. And so how do you feel about that matchup? What are your guys' opinions on Ole specifically as a support? I'm curious to...
I know Martin said he's very annoying to play against because this guy doesn't roam. He just he just bases and just runs back to his lane.
He has a very lane focused approach, so he's very annoying to play against for our bot lane. Or at least that's what they said. I'm sure he's he looked like a good player.
Yeah,
right? Like
they both look good. Yeah,
I think their bot lane's really good, but I think it depends. League of Legends, like this entire split, has been mid jungle, and then where does mid jungle go? And considering we have the stronger mid laner, at least I think so, and I think we can all agree that we probably do.
Initial expectations are definitely in favor of Caps. I'll say that.
That the mid jungle influences whatever they want to. So if they decide to influence that bot lane and we end up winning that mid jungle, then Team Liquid's bot lane is going to have to bleed for that.
Yeah, I also think Ole relies sometimes on a few specific champions.
Right.
And then again, we also rely sometimes on a few specific champions or a few specific matchups. So I think the bot lane is going to be decided mostly by draft.
Okay,
I can agree with that.
Team Liquid over in North America definitely looked like the smartest team. I think in the way they were playing, didn't win through laning phase, which was obviously it's a good thing going into an international tournament. You don't just rely on stomping lanes. There was a lot more focus on Xmithy, obviously, specifically dictating the game, and then just. In the mid game, like they're smart, like they understand how to snowball an advantage. They are good with the vision setup. They're good at setting up the correct play, especially around double lift specifically. And while Pole Builder is not going to be the greatest carry of all time, like he's pretty reliable. He's
reliable for sure.
Yeah, he's a consistent player. So that's the thing with Team Liquid that's going to be interesting during this tournament. Like, will they actually be able to use? And have you guys noticed this from obviously playing them that like really good mid-game setups and kind of understanding of how to play macro without necessarily just winning through only late-game team fighting or pure laning phase?
I think they've definitely shown a few things that we ourselves didn't think of that were very good in terms of macro and map movement. Are they much better than the other teams? Like much better than us? No. I think we are doing things that they would never think of, and they're doing things that we would never think of, but now we do. So the question is, do they copy the good things from us, and do we copy the good things from them? I know we're copying a few things, but they may still have some aces up their sleeve. And I think Smithy is a very good jungler, very smart. He looks like the strongest member on their team.
Agree.
At the same time, I don't...
Double lift?
Double lift.
You can argue for
let's just say that.
But regardless, that's good praise to hear because I think Smithy's been touted as such a strong jungler for a while now, actually.
But I don't think Broxah is going to have a mismatch with any of the junglers. Like Peanut is Peanut, but I don't think Smithy's going to run over Broxah or anything. He's just so solid and consistent. Like,
I think so too. I think that's the biggest strength Broxah has. Is that he's a wall. He's the wall. You know, you have to get over him, and I don't think he ever lets that happen.
He's a big dude. You don't get over Broxah.
I think it's difficult to say because Team Liquid has so many experienced players, right? Like almost all of them have several years. And if you put me into that aspect, I think if you put me in, I think our years combined of experience are really small compared to theirs. Because I think Captain Brox only have 1 year, I believe.
Yeah.
So, given their experience, if I'm playing, I think they might pull out a thing or two that we don't expect. Whereas I think Soaz has that advantage over me in the sense that he knows, you know, like he'll smell it. You know, like if Team Liquid's trying to do like some cheeky comeback play
from season 4 that I remember.
I think he has that experience with like maybe he'll have that advantage and smell a way Team Liquid can win that I wouldn't see, and that can give him the advantage over me.
They don't feel like the team that cheeses a lot. They're very standard kind of. Okay, so you guys obviously know something there. Like there's been a lot of patches.
It doesn't necessarily have to be cheese. It just has to be like a good play that makes sense.
Right.
You have to have the balls to do it.
That's fair.
And I think with the experience they have the balls. You know, like they'll gamble. If the game is bad for them, they will gamble on a bad situation that is at least 50-50. So I think that'll be cool to watch, I think.
Yeah, I'm excited for Team Liquid. I'm not gonna hype them and say they're like the greatest team ever, but I think they are actually a good team coming into this tournament. And I think also because we have these hyped 80 carries, like Double Lift, it's always kind of been very mixed on his international performance. Like we've seen some games where he looked really good, and then other games where everything just seemed to fall apart for him, or he's been caught out,
And games where he looked really good and then got one shot by a victor.
That stuff also happened. So there's always been
People get one shot by a victor. That's what that champion does.
yeah, but there's just always been so many questions regarding his international performance, and I think for him, he wins with Team Liquid, he wins with another North American team. He gets to go to a tournament with Reckless, Uzi, Prey as the other AD carries. Like, if there was ever a moment to be like, yeah, I can put these guys in the dumpster, this tournament right now would be it. So that's going to be insanely hyped as well to actually watch.
Does this tournament decide the best AD carry in the world?
Like I said, I think mid jungle is really important in the current meta. Like, like if you're playing against Kingzone, and Uzi might be a better AD carry than Prey, I'm not sure. People say he's the best. Some do, some don't. But then you have BDD and Peanut, just running through your lane, killing you. And it's hard to play the game,
Yeah.
You sit under your tower.
Yeah, it's just hard to breathe when like that's the thing about the meta. I think is that mid jungle, like it's hard to breathe when mid jungle gets ahead, especially given like, some of the things we've seen, right? Like if there's a Skarner running around, with Predator, then your turret's not safe anymore.
From a caster broadcast narrative, you can definitely spin it as this tournament can show us who is the best AD carry in the world right now.
That's
like
for sure.
when you have these names here, if Kingzone ends up losing a final and Reckless hard carries Fnatic, trust me, people are gonna say he's the
naturally,
best
but that's what I'm
AD
saying.
carry in
No,
the
no, no,
world.
I will
but
come
that's-
on the show and say that over and over again for an entire year.
Yeah,
probably.
but that's just how it works. Like if I hard carry, everyone's gonna say I'm the best top laner. If Khan hard carries, he's gonna be the best top laner. If you hard carry at any international event, people are gonna say you're the best. Isn't that why people always said the Faker was the best? Because he ended up hard carrying international events.
We also hard carried in Korea. But yeah, it's fair.
You always hard carried, and that's my point. Like if Krabs hard carries, he's the best. If anybody, you can name anybody, even a support player.
I mean, we had
he's the best.
MSI last year with Perks, when he played so well. There was a lot of discussions going on about him actually being the best performing mid laner, during that one tournament. And I mean, that's again the really awesome things when we have so many stacked lineups now facing each other during the tournament itself. But the AD carry topic will just be there through all the games we're gonna watch, and it will be a discussion on can anyone challenge Uzi, Prey, can Reckless live up to the hype, and the same for Double Lift.
I mean, I'm excited. I know we'll hear it probably too much by the end of the tournament, but regardless, it'll still be interesting. I'm
Killed on the podcast.
I mean, the thing is that there's just like every matchup is interesting to me because even top lane, where you talk about three, maybe primarily tank players, even Khan just being in there makes the whole thing interesting to see actually who gets the edge there. But overall, I'm excited to see for MSI. Can we get one last I want one last strong statement to end our MSI discussion. I'm trying to figure out how to get it out of you guys, but I just want like EU fans to have something to hold on. We'll print it on a poster that they can wave from the crowd,
Give us your top 4 placements after groups. We did it last week with the predictions.
Yeah.
Where
After groups?
So if you guys had to rank where, the teams are going to end once groups is over, who's first in the group? You can have your separate ones or you can do it together.
Yeah, I think that's really hard. I think if you're trying to be realistic, it's, it's almost impossible to be realistic about this.
I mean, yeah. But that's the thing about this that makes it fun, right? Because if you had all the answers, then it would be boring. But you don't.
Even that's the
You
thing.
gotta
What's
take a
fun,
risk.
even if I had all the answers, even if I had all the formulas, I don't think my answer would always be right. And I think that's what makes the tournament fun.
I mean, yes, there's a lot of random things that can happen.
And I don't think the better team is necessarily going to finish first, second, or third, right?
Exactly.
Well,
That's what my experience was.
I'm going to go and throw and say that Kingzone will be first.
Okay.
Spicy.
Okay. Yeah,
Spicy.
it's fair. It's fair. Good start.
I think that they don't necessarily have to be. I just think that their players are actually good at best of one. Like they actually look like they have scary players in best of one. Like they look like players like any 5 of them could just have one good game and carry it straight up. And that's what makes a good best of 5 team, I think. So Kingzone first, and now it gets hard. Here's where you have to think what's gonna happen.
I mean, second place, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Even if you don't
Team
agree.
Liquid. Put it in.
You have to say it, even if you don't agree. But I actually
Yeah.
think we're second best.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, Fnatic gets second place.
You have to say it even if you don't agree. I'm glad you're here.
I
Youngbuck.
agree, I agree,
That's
I
the
agree.
Youngbuck quote I want to take away from this.
Third place.
Third place.
I have my answer ready, but I want to hear yours.
Team Liquid.
Okay, I had RNG. and I think Team Liquid is a better team. But I think RNG, best of one power.
Yeah,
so I would pick Team Liquid in the best of 5, but RNG, best of 1. China, in best of 1 is just disgusting.
Yeah, obviously. But
Very
it's also,
unpredictable.
It's also the other way around for me is that, for me, the question is Impact going to pick carries? You know, is he going to try and get something out of these expected tanks, right? Because we don't know what Let Me is going to pull out, but we're expecting tanks to show up. I think MLXG is also somebody that, at least in his region, very much does a lot of surprising things. He's some very interesting pathing from some games, and I don't think Xmithy is going to let that happen or be shaken by that.
He's definitely played against them before.
Been
seen it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I expect Xmithy to be able to handle that, and I think if you take that away, I feel like Uzi is the type of player that you need to teach him a lesson every game, in the sense that he won't respect you for the first gank. And then after he'll start, he'll be cool again. So for example, if the enemy jungle could be there, I feel like he ends up, either burning his summoners or something, and then he's reminded, okay, I gotta chill. And if you grab that opportunity and you make a count, I think Doublelift will be able to run away with that lane.
So, one of the most interesting interviews I've seen in a long time when it comes to League of Legends teams was actually done by the LPL broadcast. It was by Frost Curran when she interviewed Uzi before the LPL final. And they were talking about this part specifically of Uzi, getting ganged or sometimes needing someone to guide him around. And he specifically said that he's so focused, he's so tunnel vision on himself and his mechanics and the small moves he's making, trying to beat this other AD carry in lane, that even if the enemy jungler walks over a ward, he doesn't really pay attention to it. And he needs someone next to him who is effectively constantly telling him what's happening. And it actually is something we've seen in the past where teams have found success, early ganking him, trying to shut him down. And you can actually punish that part a lot and try and catch him out. But that's always it's rare I hear a player admit that. Most of the time they're it wasn't really my fault, I was doing something else, but, normally I will always spot it. But he actually said, no, I'm so focused on my individual part that I can miss this kind of stuff. And I was just it was fascinating because it also kind of explains why sometimes Uzi in the past have just randomly been caught. Why are you doing this?
No, that's what I'm saying, but that's actually a big weakness, because I think
it is a weakness.
If you do that against a team like Kingzone and you slip off that one time, they're going to run away with it. Now, is Team Liquid going to be able to do that? I think so, actually. I think that MLXG won't be able to do anything special. And I think that from a competitive standpoint and at a certain level, that if one lane gets that treatment and they do fall behind, that the other lane should be able to hold fast and just wait until that lane snowballs their lead and just runs away with it. And I think the Doublelift OLA will be able to do that against Uzi if Uzi slips up. Whether he will or not, I think so, because from what I've seen, it's every game, you give him a little shake, the enemy jungler just comes to his lane and shakes him up a bit, and depending on how hard that is, he either dies or he blows summoners or whatever, and I think if he ends up dying and the advantage is big enough, they'll get wins.
All right.
Yeah. Or there will be a 5v5 in the bot lane.
Well, that's
I was about to say, the theory is all great, but in practice, RNG tends to get some of their fights, even if it wasn't planned always.
Yeah, sure.
And man, they can execute those fights.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. And that obviously could snowball the other way, and then the game's over instantly.
It turns around.
But there you go. This is the predictions, and I split you guys up. Are you guys good being separate? Kingzone, number 1 for both of you. Number 2, Fnatic for both of you. Youngbuck is taking RNG 3rd, Team Liquid 4th. Bwipo's doing the opposite. Team Liquid 3rd, RNG 4th. Now, we have to answer the immortal question, Deficio. The wager, gentlemen, is the last thing. Now, we didn't have a wager. We took a break to figure one out, I'm going to be honest. But we found one. So, we had a big discussion last week about the EU LCS needing more mustaches. Luckily, 3 of the 4 people at this table can grow one, although they don't frequently show them off.
Let's not mention the person who cannot.
So here's the deal. Fnatic. Here's the stakes. Loser has to grow a mustache. They have to wear that mustache, however horrible it looks. Growing it from the moment MSI ends until the season starts. They have to wear that mustache on broadcast for the first day of broadcast. if you're a caster and you're on air, if you're a player and you're on stage, if you're a director of esports and you're behind the scenes, we will get pictures. We will do our best to get it on broadcast as well. I'll be honest, I haven't talked to the producers about this, so they may not be quite so keen.
It's just a mustache.
It's just a mustache.
It's just a mustache.
And of course, the rule for me and Youngbuck, who both have baby faces, we have to separate our mustache. We're allowed to keep a little beard along the bottom, but it has to be a clearly separated mustache. You can twirl it, you can give it the porn stash, however you want to approach it. It's your game, but you have to keep growing it.
All right.
Until it goes.
What if the mustache is not gonna be the greatest in the world?
That's fine. You have to keep it anyway.
You'll be able to see it, but it will not look great.
So for the one person who shall not be mentioned, who can't grow a mustache very well,
A little bit of it.
A little bit of a mustache. You still have to grow it anyway.
I'll
no matter
try.
How awful it looks.
Oh god. Oh, it's gonna be so bad.
I'm not convinced that mine's gonna be great either, but you know.
I mean, you're already growing a little bit. I believe. We're
right,
gonna find
let's hope.
out. But here's the deal. We were debating stakes, so we agreed on something. How about
teamed
you?
up.
We teamed up. Me and Deficio versus Bwipo and Youngbuck. Why don't you guys run us through the stakes, or not the stakes, but the actual bet itself? What we're betting on?
Yeah, if we get top 2 at MSI, then the 2 of you are gonna grow the mustache, and
Yeah.
if not, then we will grow a mustache.
Yeah.
From the finals to the first week of LCS.
Oh, that's perfect. And that means make the finals of MSI.
Yeah.
We're not
Yes.
talking group stage, we're talking playoffs.
Yeah, this
Yes.
top 2 in a
Top
group.
2.
Even if you get top 2 in groups and then bomb in your semi.
Nah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We will
All
grow the
right.
mustache.
All right.
I like it. There you guys have it. That is the bet for EUphoria. It's all about mustache growing this week to go along with
For
the
day 1 of the ULCS summer split.
Oh God. Pray, folks. If you're an European fan, you want Fnatic to win, and you want Deficio to grow a mustache, because it will be great.
Oh, God.
Otherwise, thank you so much for listening. This has been episode 13. Thank you to Bwipo and Youngbuck for coming on.
Good
Do you guys want to give any shout-outs before we close? I always forget to ask.
Yeah, actually, can I mention something else?
Yeah.
Because I think Martin has gotten a really bad rep this split from like an interview from Jessis and Hillsong, that he's difficult to work with, but
Oh, yeah, Reckless.
I really want to set a record straight. Not you,
That's,
Martin.
damn it.
No, like Reckless is very easy to work with. Just at the start of the split, Hillsong and Reckless butted heads in terms of how they want to play the lane, but other than that, like everything is fine between the two now that they've synergized, and he's really easy to work with. So I just want to kill that because it's not correct.
All right, there it is. Dead. Martin, Reckless Larson, easy to work with, even if there is some conflict every once in a while. People butt heads. It's part of the job.
You're not supposed to say that.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, but we're like 8 or 9 guys in that house. Like there's always
No,
gonna be
that's
conflict,
what I'm saying.
you know?
It's like I don't think
Yeah,
it's
of
I don't think it's reasonable to expect, because like me and Martin argue all the time.
Yeah.
Right, and we've had legitimate like butting heads kind of arguments. So what happens when you work with people? You're gonna have conflict. It does not mean like it doesn't mean the end of the world. You know, that's how it goes.
Exactly. Like, everyone fights with each other at some point, and it doesn't make someone hard to work with. If these two players had one argument at the start of the split, it's whatever.
I like it.
Yeah. We always have arguments with Dylan when we play Werewolves, so but we still love him. We still easy to work with.
We kill a lot of memes on this show.
This was the most serious ending we've had.
That's true.
We always end with
I used to chat,
dumb.
like I want to say one thing, and I was like, ooh, and then it was very serious, which is respectable. You can say one thing. I think that's it's totally fine.
Bwipo, you want to kill any?
I mean,
Are you gonna be the best top laner in Europe at the end of the next split? Best top laner in the world?
top laner in Europe by the end of the next split. I could take that. I will take people up on that for sure.
All right. Well, maybe we'll bring you back to like solidify.
Like
some-
obviously the whole thing that I'm, people are exaggerating, especially on Reddit, and they love me. They love the I'm the best, not even top laner, sometimes best player. But like people, I came across as cocky for some reason. Maybe it's because
Because you were cocky.
But you admit it.
I admit that I was cocky, but I won ULCS finals. I wanted to say something. I wanted to make it fun. I wanted to make it spicy.
Dude,
There you
we
go.
love it.
Yeah,
we love it.
fun. Like it's
Keep
it up.
being you, man.
I wanted to quote a specific Gilius tweet that I got in trouble for quoting before, but I won't.
Ooh, why not?
Because it got cut last time.
Oh, really?
Because it wasn't good. Quote it to you later. But for now, you guys can look through and find what quote I'm talking about. But this has been episode 13 of the EUphoria podcast. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you guys in the future.